There's a science behind every bit of this. How you got here was not accident. And if you understand how you got here and you understand the mechanism, there is no limitation on your life.
We have a little tape for a moment. Our first speaker, we've been trying to get for 5 years. And we love him to death. Just has been bad timing each time, so we're so thrilled. And he's not scared of COVID, so he came in person. So that deserves a hand all by itself. And he's not scared of it because he knows the facts. Take a look who's your first speaker.
Bruce Lipton, best-selling author of The Biology of Belief, is an internationally recognized leader in bridging the gap between science and spirit. Enter the vast world of your cells and experience the wisdom within, as Dr. Lipton explains the science of epigenetics in a way that is fun and easy to understand.
Epigenetics, as the name implies, epi means above, genetics is the genetic activity, so epigenetics means actions above the genes. It was environmental signals that controlled the activity of the gene. Genes do not control themselves. Genes respond to signals in the environment.
And join Dr. Lipton in a journey beyond the infinite.
I want to thank everybody out there because you are the cultural creatives.
I'm going to talk about science. And the reason why I'm going to talk about science is because I didn't believe in any New Age stuff like that. I didn't believe in spirituality. I was teaching medical students the story of genes and genes controlling our lives. I have now a completely different story to tell you. I was very fortunate to see something 53 years ago. 53 years ago, I was doing research on stem cells. 53 years ago, there weren't more than 24 people in the whole world that even knew what the hell we were doing. But I saw something, and it was so profound that at some point I had to leave teaching medical school. I had tenure, and I walked out because I saw that they wanted me to teach, of course, the conventional curriculum, and my research challenged that completely because I saw that genes don't control life. At some point, I left the system, and then Stanford University, who had a bigger open mind than other places, said, come on in and try it. And I did some research at Stanford that, again, emphasizes everything I'm going to talk about. So why I'm talking about this, it's not like, oh, please believe me in this. It's because there's a science behind every bit of this. How you got here was not accident. And if you understand how you got here and you understand the mechanism, there is no limitation on your life. And this is what we're going to go into. So I'm going to start off with an understanding, a basic building. I just saw this video. I said, geez, they just said in about 3.5 minutes what I was going to spend over 90 minutes. So maybe I should just leave. I think that was the point of everything. Simple point. Knowledge is power. Yes, knowledge is power. That's an absolute fact. And I go, so what? And I say, well, we always talk about knowledge is power, but let me give you the corollary. The corollary is this. A lack of knowledge is a lack of power. I go, wow, for sure. But let me add this one. A misperception is something you buy to be true, but it's false. So any misperception you hold, by definition, has disempowered you. A misperception is a false thing. And I want to start off with one of the most important misperceptions that you have all been programmed with. And in fact, I even helped program it to medical doctors over 40 years ago. And what is this all about? And the answer is this, story of DNA. Oh, that famous story. I remember the day that was announced in the newspaper. I lived in New York City. We had the Daily News, which was some tabloid, always had a big picture of something on the front, car accidents, mobsters killing each other, something like, wow, I'd run out on the porch and go, what's the picture today? And the first time I ever went out and opened up the Daily News, there wasn't even a picture on the front page. The whole page just had in block print, Secret of Life Discovered. The DNA Secret came out in 1953. And what does it mean? Oh, it was the belief that genes control the characters of who we are. And I go, well, first of all, is this Watson and Crick's work? Well, in a Me Too world, it's time to make another announcement here. It wasn't them who discovered the DNA double helix. It was a woman. Her name is Rosalind Franklin. Her major advisor gave her research to Watson and Crick. And guess what? She didn't even know about it. And they took her research and created their story, and they didn't even cite her name in the references, even though they took the research of a double helix from a woman and never assigned any value to that. So it's Rosalind Franklin who is one of the big people in this story. So I say, so what does all this represent? Well, we bought into a belief that genes turn on and off, and in the process control our lives. I go, wow, that's a science called genetic determinism. Genes determine the characteristics of your life. I go, well, yeah, that's what we all bought into, that idea, and I even contributed that 40 or 50 years ago. But look at this cover of Life magazine. Were you born that way? Not only our physical structure is attributed to genes, but our emotions and our behavior are apparently caused by genes. And I go, well, here's the most important questions I can ask you. As far as you know, did you pick the genes you came with? Not as far as we know. If you don't like the characteristics, can you just go change these genes? No. And then we're told that the genes turn on and off by themselves. And all of a sudden I say, what was I teaching in that school? And the teaching was victimization. That you are victims of your heredity. Oh my God, there's cancer running in my family. Oh my God, people in my family die before 70. I'm 68, I'm gonna die. And all this belief that genes are gonna control your life. And the reality of that is not real. It's totally false. But people are programmed with this belief. This is a page out of the National Institute of Health, the science voice of science, the government's voice of science. I said, what is the chapter? This chapter is called The Nucleus, the brain of the cell. Well, why is it the brain of the cell? Because the nucleus has all the genes in it. And the genes apparently turn on and off just like nerve cells so that they're plotting your life inside that nucleus. So that's the brain of the cell. It's in all the textbooks. I go, well, here's an important part. By definition, the brain is what coordinates all the functions of an organism. And I said, well, what happened if you take an organism and you remove the brain from an organism? I said, what's the result of something like that? The answer is quite simple. The organism dies. That's what happened if you take the brain out and throw it away. Then I said, well, what about in the nucleus of a cell? Because we said the nucleus is the brain. And I said, what happens if you take them out? I actually did this work in 1962, and I pulled out the nucleus with a micropipette, and guess what? The cells in this process called enucleation, the cells stay alive. Their behavior is unaffected, and the whole point is this. They didn't need genes. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, the belief that genes were controlling all this, and the answer is if you throw out the genes and the control is still there, then the simple point is this. The nucleus is not the brain of the cell. I go, wow. Well, let me give you a fact. And this is the most important fact. Genes do not control biology. You've been led to believe that genes turn on and off. It's like they have some kind of ability to manifest their life. And in fact, this is not true. Genes do not control biology. And a very important fact, because it affects so many people, they believe, as it said in that little intro, that genes cause cancer. The answer is there is not one gene that causes cancer. And I go, well, what do you mean? I say, the genes didn't cause cancer. They're correlated. We'll talk about that. I say, so why is it relevant? People believe this. And beautiful young women who find they have a BRCA, breast cancer gene, go to the extreme of having double mastectomy while they're young and healthy, with the idea, I will avoid that future. And the reality is what? Does that gene cause cancer? The answer is no. You know why? 50% of the women that have that gene never get the cancer. So what's the point? Possession of the gene itself does not cause cancer. We have to separate two important words that people mix up, causation and correlation. Causation means the act or agency which produces an effect. Correlation means something that is associated, a relationship existing with something. Cancer doesn't have a gene that causes it. Cancer is correlated with a cause, but it's not the cause. And all of a sudden I said, well, let me tell you now, because I want to say genes don't cause something. Okay, there are about a half a dozen diseases associated with a single gene. I'll just list them for you right now. If you have one of these genes in your system, you'll likely experience this. And I go, so yeah, some genes cause stuff. I go, yeah, but how much of the disease and illness on this planet can you attribute to the genes? And the answer is simply less than 1%. Less than 1% of all disease on this planet is even connected to genes. And we don't talk about it. And I go, what do you mean? I got 99% of illness and it had nothing to do with the genes. And it has to do with two main things, okay? Lifestyle and environment. I say, why is that important? Because those are two things you absolutely control. So the idea of having a disease is a loss of control, and you've lost it in this point. This is a very important fact. So I say, what the hell did I learn in 1967? Well, I was culturing stem cells. So let me give you first a little backup. A human body looks like a single entity, but from a cell biologist's point of view, you're made out of 50 trillion cells. The cells are the living entity. You, by definition, are a community of 50 trillion cells. Cells have the same functions as you have. There's not one new function in this entire human body that's not present in almost every cell. Where did you get a digestive system from? Cells already had it. A nervous system, reproductive. Cells even have an immune system. So all of a sudden I go, well, what's the function of a stem cell? What the hell is a stem cell? Well, you remember you got 50 trillion cells in the community, but guess what? You're losing millions of cells every minute. Every minute, millions of cells are dying. I go, wow, how long can you live if you're losing millions of cells every minute? And the answer is not very long. So the point is this, then how can you stay alive? And the answer is, there are embryonic cells scattered throughout your body whose function is to replace all the dying cells. I say, what? They're called embryonic cells? I say, no. Before you were born, the cell was called an embryonic cell. The moment you were born, the same cell is now called a stem cell. Stem cell's an embryonic cell. Do you have stem cells? Well, you're here, so congratulations. Every one of you's got stem cells, or you wouldn't be here right at this moment. I say, what was my research? I'd isolate one stem cell, put it in a dish by itself. It divides every 10 hours about. First is 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, doubling and doubling. After 1 week, 30,000 cells in the Petri dish. What's the most important point? They all came from one parent cell. This is called cloning. I say, so what was relevant? Then the 30,000 cells are genetically identical. 30,000 genetically identical cells. I say, that's not the experiment. Here's the experiment. I take the cells out of that dish and split it into 3 dishes. And I feed them a slightly different culture medium, chemistry. You go, okay, now what the hell is that relevant to? Here's what's relevant. What is culture medium? The laboratory version of blood. If I grow human cells, I say, what are human cells made? You know, the blood of humans? I make a culture medium based on that. If I grow mouse cells, I look at the blood of a mouse, and I make a culture medium based on that. So I can change some of the constituents. So I make 3 different culture media. These are the culture media is the environment in which cells live. So I take out 1/3 of the cells, put them in a dish with environment A, culture medium A, they form muscle. I take another group of cells out of that dish, put it in a second dish with a second culture medium, environment B, the cells form bone. I take a third dish, add more genetically identical cells, change the environment, and they form fat cells. Well, this is back in 1967. I'm teaching in the classroom students, genes control life. But this study said no. I said, what do you mean it says no? They all had the same genes. So what made them different from each other? It wasn't the genes, it was the environment. And all of a sudden I said, wait a minute. It's the environment is controlling the genes, not the genes controlling themselves. Well, I started to bring that to all my colleagues, and they all challenged me. Well, how does that work? I didn't know how it worked. I could show them the results. It was repeatable. Every time I did the experiment, I couldn't show them, but so they ignored me. They said, that's not relevant. You can't show anything about it. It's not relevant. And at some point, I show them every time I can do the experiment. It always comes out the same. It's predictable. And I say, what's relevant? In science, predictability is relevant. And so I said, I can't handle this anymore. I left the system. I got into some quantum physics, which I'm going to give you a little bit of, but don't be afraid. It's going to be easy. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, the mechanism. I found the key mechanism of life. That sounds really important, but it was really cool. It was really cool. I'm going to show it to you and how it works, okay? So I said, well, what's going on here? Environment is controlling the cells. I go, this is the science of epigenetics. It was founded as a science in 1990. I already had 20 plus years of research on this before they even named the science, so I was way ahead of the group, fortunately. And the relevance is this. What we're going to understand is how life works. And first thing is this. You're made out of proteins. Your cells, the building blocks, are proteins. I say, what's the word protein? Pro, first, teen, part. All of a sudden it says proteins are the first important part. But we've been forgetting that and went to the DNA. There are 100,000 different proteins. And if you max and mix, in other words, it's sort of somewhat very much like a producer of your structure. Proteins give you your anatomy, okay? I go, well, that's really cool. How does it work? It's like a Lego set. I got 100,000 different parts. You assemble these parts, you make a muscle cell. You assemble these parts, you make a nerve cell. You take some from each of those, put them together, you get a skin cell. So basically, what is it? All of the 200 different types of cells are built out of these building blocks, proteins. And so proteins become the foundation of life. And then all of a sudden, what's really... Oh, secret of life. It's the secret of life. I got to give you the secret of life. And here it is. And don't get too excited because it's not that complicated. It's so simple that we missed it because we weren't looking for it. So here's what the secret of life is all about. You're made out of 100,000 different proteins. Proteins have an anatomy. They have a structure. Each one has a different structure. As I said, when you put them together, you get all these different cell types. I say, great. But here's something you have to add, and that is this. Cells respond to environmental signals. Information in the environment can complement a different protein and cause it to move. Movement is the secret of life. Action comes from proteins moving. What's the difference between a live person and a dead person? The dead person, the proteins don't move anymore. And all of a sudden it's like, well, then where's life coming from? The signal plus the protein generates movement. That's where life comes from. Anatomy is created by proteins, and now physiology. Proteins are the fundamental business. How can proteins create something as vast and as magnificent as a human body? Well, here's a picture of the Tesla factory in California. The red machines are equivalent to proteins. Why? They each have a structure, and they each have a very specific movement. And so when you activate the movement, it does a movement. Each one does the same movement all over and over again. But watch what happens when you line them up. All of a sudden, guess what? They're building a car. Do you see a human on this assembly line? There's no human there. The machines are building the car. I go, what's the relevance? Proteins are machines. And inside your body, you have some of them lined up to give you respiration. Other proteins line up like this and give you digestion. Other proteins give you nerve functions. So all of the characteristics of your body are due to proteins and their movement. So here's the bottom line secret of life. You're made out of protein. Signals from the environment that will complement that protein, when joining to the protein, cause the protein to move. That's called behavior. Where does life come from? Proteins moving. When does life end? Proteins not moving. And all of a sudden it says, wow, this is really interesting because how does it work? Well, signals from the environment land on the surface of the cell. And then the membrane translates that signal and sends a signal inside the cell. And some of the signals engage the proteins to do respiration, digestion, movement, all those things like that. But if their protein is not in the cell that is needed, what does the cell do? It needs a protein to respond to the environment. The answer is the signal goes into the nucleus. And that's the signal that activates the genes. So the genes are not activated by themselves. The genes are activated by environmental signals. So as you go from one environment to another environment, you're changing your genetic activity. And this is the new science called epigenetics. Epi, as this video said before, means above. So when I say old story, this character is under genetic control, I'm saying genes control this character. That's a false story. The character is under epigenetic control. I say, what does it mean? Epi means above. So epigenetic control means control above the genes. The genes have no control. You have the control. Why? Because it's due to how you respond to the world around you. You're changing your genetic activity. I say, how does it work? I say, a chromosome has a DNA core and a protein sleeve. I go, so what? So I say, well, what causes a protein to change shape? That's one of the things that's the most important fact. You ready? Can you remember? Okay, I hope you do. Environmental signal. So how does it work? I go, look, here's a chromosome. My arm is the DNA. My sleeve is a protein sleeve. I say, I take a magic marker and I write the gene for blue eyes and I hold up my DNA and I say, can you read the gene for blue eyes? I pretend I put magic marker, okay? Can you read? Say yes or no. So say yes. Okay. Yeah. And I say, yeah, but what does it look like when it's inside the nucleus? Oh, looks like this. Can you read the gene for blue eyes? But if you want to read the gene for blue eyes, what must you do? Take the sleeve off. What's the sleeve made out of? Protein. So a signal from the environment actually causes the sleeve to come off and activate the gene. The gene didn't do it itself. So here's a animation of a chromosome with a DNA core, and on the beginning of each gene, there's a special protein called regulatory protein. I say, how does it work? It goes like this. A signal from the environment comes into the nucleus. The signal, the environmental signal, complements a specific regulatory protein. When that signal binds to the regulatory protein, it causes the protein to change shape. And when the protein changes shape, the sleeve pops off. Now the gene is exposed. Then I say, then what? I say, another protein comes up. I'll just let it go by video here. The sleeve pops off. Another protein comes up and copies that DNA. And the copy is called RNA. That's the blueprint for a protein that's going to go into the cell. And I say, after the signal is over, the sleeve's covered up and the gene is inactivated. Now, all the years we've rooted for genes controlling stuff, let's watch and say, come on, gene, do something. Come on, gene, do something. Come on, gene. And you realize what? The gene didn't do a damn thing, and you really put genes as the core of how you live your life on this planet. And genes have no action at all. Genes are blueprints. That's all they are. And I go, in the old days, some of us can remember when television wasn't on 24 hours a day, and at the end of the broadcast day, they put a signal on, a test pattern. I say, a pattern is like a gene. A gene is a pattern. I say, this pattern doesn't come from the TV set. It's being broadcast. But if I turn the dials on the TV set, I can turn it on and off. I can turn the volume up. I can change the shape. Look, I changed the shape of the pattern. Okay? Did I change the original broadcast? Yes or no? Say no. Oh, good, you follow it. Good. No, it's still the original one. I just altered it with my dials. Okay? Let me change it again. Here's an alter it again. I'm altering the pattern. Same blueprint, but altering the pattern. I never changed the original pattern. This is the truth about epigenetics. Epigenetics changes the readout of a gene, but does not change the original genetic code. I go, how does it work? I go, well, DNA, let's take this little loop. This is where the gene is. That's about 3% of the DNA. And I say, well, what's the rest of the DNA called? Well, since they said the 3% makes us the gene blueprints, The rest they called junk DNA. They called it junk because they said, just like humans, totally inefficient. Oh my God, were they wrong. Every bit of that DNA is functional. I say, what does it represent? I say, in that 97%, actually, there are proteins called modules that are before and after the gene. I go, so what do they represent? Simplification, they're the equivalent of the dials on the television set. So in other words, the gene is the blueprint pattern, but the dials can change the readout. And the dials are adjusted by what? Your consciousness and the environment. You can control your consciousness, you can control the environment, so you're not a victim of your genes, you're the master of your genes. But you never knew that because the program was you were a victim of them. Epigenetics changes the dials. The environment sends signals to the proteins move and change the dial on these modules, which changes the readout. Some epigenetics go in and actually can cause a gene not to be read or cause one to be read. And I say, yeah, but epigenetics didn't come from the genes, it came from the environment. So the relevance is really important. I say, how can you create, and this is the big blockbuster of the Human Genome Project, because when they went into the project, they said it took a gene blueprint to make a protein. And guess what? They already had a number, 100,000 proteins, 100,000 genes. They did the Human Genome Project, and guess what? 20,000 genes. 20,000 genes, the same number of genes as in some of the smallest organisms on this planet. There's a worm they study behavior in called Caenorhabditis elegans. It's got 20,000 genes. It's got 1,250 cells. Same number of genes as us. And all of a sudden you go, well, we got the same number of genes as a worm. And all of a sudden it changes the whole game, because how do you make 100,000 proteins from 20,000 genes? And the answer is those little modules. Here's what they do. When I have a gene that has a code, and I'm going to call this the reading gene, and I say this is a copy of the reading gene. I made a copy of the original gene. This is called RNA, a copy. But what epigenetics can do is paper and tape. So epigenetics can take that code and cut it and change the reading. Now it's a read gene. Or I can change it again. I can make the ding gene. Or I can cut it and separate it, make the add gene. Or cut out the middle, join the two back together again, make the ring gene. And all of a sudden I just showed you, look, with epigenetic control, I can take any gene in your body and create over 3,000 different proteins from the same gene. I say, why is it relevant? You don't have to have any oncogenes. You don't have to have any bad genes to have a disease. Why? A normal gene will create a disease with the environment and consciousness that will take the gene and make a protein out of it that's not functional. That's where disease comes from. Okay? So what's the relevance? We also know a very interesting story about what happens with twins. Twins that are born are called identical, came from the same genes. One egg split into two siblings have the exact same genes. But guess what? One can grow up to be 100, the other could die at 50 with cancer. They're very different in their final life experiences, yet they came from the same genes. How does that happen? Well, they looked at the siblings' genetic readout the moment they were born. They almost had the exact same readout. They came a year later, and now there were differences between the siblings. 10 years later, massive differences. 20 years later, and I go, what was going on? Their life experiences changed their genetics differently. And so all of a sudden it said they came with the same genes. One could die with cancer, and the other could live to be 100. And all of a sudden it wasn't the genes that were the problem. It was the life experiences that altered these genes. Dean Ornish, an internist in San Francisco, did work with prostate cancer patients. Listen what he did. He takes his prostate cancer patients, splits them into two groups. One group gets the conventional medical treatment, pharmaceutical, radiation, whatever the hell it is. The other group, no treatment. What did he do? In the second group, he taught them how to have a better diet. He taught them how to reduce stress, and he taught them how to go out and enjoy life Lifestyle changes. Nothing chemical, nothing drugs, nothing. I say, so how'd the experiment go? They read the genes in both groups at the start of the experiment, and for 90 days, that's how long the experiment runs, 90 days, they check the genes of the group that got conventional medical treatment. 90 days after, the same genes were still being expressed. But the group that changed lifestyle, they read the genes before, and 90 days later they read the genes. 500 genes changed their function by changing lifestyle. Diet and stress, taught them how to meditate, and all of a sudden it's like, these were the genes that were precipitating the cancer. What was the result? They were eliminating the cancer, not by killing the cancer cells. They were eliminating the cancer by changing the consciousness and the lifestyle of the person. There is no gene that causes cancer. They looked at meditators and they said, read the genes on 2 genes that affected inflammation. They meditated 8 hours, and the genes changed their function. What was the point? You've been more or less programmed that the genes are concrete. The genes are your life. That's your genes. That's your life. And it goes, no, it's not. You have absolute control over it. But in all respects, it's all based on, are you living in harmony? Are you living with your power? Or did you give up your power? And that's the big story that we're going to get into. So before I go, all of us have been programmed. This is in the textbooks. It's still in the textbook. Information goes from DNA to RNA to protein, and we talk about primacy of DNA. The DNA controls your life. They left stuff out. What did they leave out? The proteins on the sleeve. And these are the ones that control whether the gene is available or not available. Yeah, but the proteins didn't make that decision. It was environment. The environment caused the proteins to change. And all of a sudden it says, then the environment controls your genetics. And then all of a sudden it says, yeah, but you control the environment. And therefore, you should never have any of these problems, okay? I said, well, what's going on here? How does it work? Well, it's the primacy of the environment. We go back and we say signal plus protein equals behavior. The signals come from the environment. The signals, but what the hell are the signals that control your biology? This is the cool part yet again. I go, why is it cool? Because our conventional understanding, based on what is called Newtonian physics, splits the universe into energy and matter. The rule, energy does not affect matter. So since you're a matter machine, if you want to change your biology, then by definition, science says you have to change the matter. And that is why we buy drugs. Drugs are matter to change matter. And I go, well, that's it. Except in 1927, the world changed. Quantum mechanics come in. I go, what was different in quantum mechanics? It said the universe isn't made out of matter and energy. The universe is only made out of energy. It's the only thing that exists. Matter is an illusion. Welcome to the illusion. All around you, you see all this matter. You're sitting on the table. You can hit the table. You can touch your friend. And you say, that's physical. And I go, no. Energy is invisible. You're made out of energy. So the first question is this. Well, if energy is invisible, how the hell can I see you? And the answer is very simple. You ready? The lights are on. And you go, it sounds funny, but here's the reason why. You're made out of energy, but photons of light, particles of light, when they hit the energy, are reflected back. So you don't see me, you see a veneer of photons from these lights bouncing back. And all of a sudden I go, you're just seeing a reflection of light. I'm not seeing you. You can't see you, you're invisible. I go, what does that mean? I go, the original idea of an atom came from the Greek, and the word atom in Greek means simply uncuttable. That meant the smallest piece of the universe. And up until 1895, science said, yep, an atom is a small little particle. There are a bunch of different types, and like recipes, you can put the atoms together and create all different kinds of things. And then in 1895, guess what? There's something inside an atom. They shot beams of light into the atom, and they got deflected, meaning there's something inside. And a new version of the atom came. and it's called the Bohr atom. This is the one that we all grew up with. The miniature solar system with a nucleus and electrons running all around. I go, that was smaller particles. But by 1927, game changed. Why? They said, what the hell are the smaller particles made out of? And when they looked inside something like a proton, they looked at, what's in a proton? There's nothing wrong with the slide. There's nothing in a proton. It's a vortex of energy. It's like a nano tornado. It's not physical at all. Atom is made out of energy, which you're made out of atoms, so by definition, you're made out of energy. You are energy. Well, Einstein, reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. This is an illusion. This is taking a new science, and the new science, quantum physics. And it's most important because our belief in the old Newtonian physics, atoms were particles like marbles. And chemistry is when the atoms come together, boom, and they create something new. I say this is an illusion. Anything you've ever seen like this is incorrect. Why? Because atoms aren't particles. Atoms are energy. I go, so what is an atom? It's ripples in a pond. Ripples are energy moving through water. Okay? You can't see the energy, but the energy is shaping the water into ripples. That's what energy is. So this vision of Newtonian physics is wrong. You want to know what an atom looks like, then you have to look at it this way. An atom is a bunch of ripples in a pond. The middle doesn't exist. That's illusion again, because there isn't anything physical. An atom is a vortex of energy. I go, why is that relevant? And the answer is this: there's no such thing as atoms touching each other. There isn't anything physical. What touches each other are the energy waves. It's interference. Patterns come out of the energy by atoms interacting with one another. I say, what do you call the energy? And the answer is the field. And I say, what is the field? You're in it. And I go, what is it? It's invisible energy. I go, yeah, what's in here? I can't see it. Radio waves, television waves, cell phone conversations are going on. Solar energy is running in here. And you are radiating energy because you are all energy beings. And all of a sudden, energy is the primary word here for this. I said, well, what is the meaning of it? Here's a simple experiment. I take a piece of paper, I take a piece of iron and a file, and I file down that iron. I get a pile of iron dust called iron filings. And I sprinkle those iron filings like in a salt shaker. I sprinkle it on this piece of paper. Experiment 1, how beautiful. What do you mean, how beautiful? That is what happens when you sprinkle iron filings on a paper. Throw it away, sprinkle again, get the same damn thing. Just random piles of iron filings. But this time I do the experiment. I put a magnet underneath the paper. Now when I put the paper on the top, and now when I sprinkle the iron filings, guess what happens? I get the ornate shape of the structure, which reflects what? The magnetic field. What's the point? Pattern. Where did the pattern come from? The pattern didn't come from the iron filings. The pattern came from the invisible energy, the field. So what's the result? And this is critical. Think about it, whether this is iron filings or tumor cells, same answer. The tumor didn't come from the tumor cells. It came from the field which generated a tumor. And you can change the field, and that's when people have remission. They change the field. I go, so why is it relevant? The answer is profoundly simple. Matter plus field equals structure. Matter, no field, no structure. So what you see in structure is not a coincidence, it's due to a field. Now here's an important quote from Albert Einstein. The field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Well, let's put it up to the field is the sole governing agency of matter. You are being shaped by a field, a human field. Your life is being shaped by the energy that you're putting out because your energy fields are altering the fields around you. Fields shape matter. You are creating your life. This is the fundamental principle of quantum physics. And I need to tell you this because quantum physics is the most valid science on this planet. This is an MRI scan. it can see through the body, but you can see all the structures. I go, well, what the hell are you looking at? That's not photons. That's not a camera. It's looking at energy. And I say, yep, every structure in your body has a unique energy, its own field. That's why it has that structure. And all of a sudden, it's like you're seeing energy. You're not seeing the body in this picture, okay? So fact, quantum physics, the most valid science on this planet. There has been no science tested more and affirmed to be truer than quantum physics. And I go, so why is that relevant? You ready? The first principle of quantum physics, the most valid science on the planet, is consciousness is creating your life experiences. And that's not a suggestion. That is the hardest fact of science. I go, so why is it relevant? Well, the answer is obvious. Change the consciousness, change the structure. And all of a sudden it says, you are generating a life. It's not an accident. Max Planck, one of the founders of quantum physics, all matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. The mind is the matrix of all matter. Mind is creating this. As hard as it is to believe after you grew up in a world that focused on a matter, to come into the truth of quantum physics that says mind is creating this. Relevance? Change your mind, change your life. You've already done that. That's why you're here in the first place. You change your mind and your consciousness. Two other quotes, Sir James Jeans, same time. The stream of knowledge is heading towards a non-mechanical reality. The universe begins to look more like a great thought than like a great machine. Mind no longer appears to be an accidental intruder into the realm of matter. We ought rather hail it as the creator and the governor of the realm of matter. Mind, that's exactly what it's about. Mind, the creator, and the governor of realm of matter. One last quote from Eddington, another physicist at the time. His is a simple quote. It is difficult for the matter-of-fact physicist to accept the view that the substratum of everything is of mental character. So it's not a suggestion. This is a fact of science. I go, why is it relevant? Change your consciousness and your world will change automatically as soon as you do this. That's what the whole structure is you've been creating all of this time. And this is more recent. Those were from when quantum physics came in. This is from the journal Nature. This is so cool. Why? Nature is the most prestigious scientific journal on the planet. Look at the conclusion. I'll just show you the last two sentences. The universe is immaterial. It's mental and spiritual. Live and enjoy. Quantum physics, in the most scientific journal on this planet, acknowledges that, of course, it's immaterial. Matter is an illusion, but it's due to mental and spiritual characteristics. And that if you change those two, you change the character of your life completely. You are a creator. You are not a victim, except for belief, which we'll get into. So quantum physics, consciousness creates our life experience. How's that working for you? Are you getting everything you want on this planet? Are you enjoying your life? Are you realizing, which I will conclude now, I'll tell you the conclusion in case you leave before I finish. A lot of people think you die and go to heaven. I'm going to offer a different suggestion, folks. You were born into heaven. This is where you came to create. And this is why you're here. So, the idea of creation is what brought you into this group in the first place. And you've changed your creation. Obviously, you still wouldn't be in the group. And the idea is, do you know how you changed it? But did you know how you created what you created? Where the hell did that come from? Well, we go back and I tell you the same thing. Proteins give you the mechanism. That's a mechanism. But the signals are the control of that mechanism. And I go, so where's the signal come from? The environment. And I go, yeah. And I say, in our conventional Newtonian world, You buy matter to affect a body made out of matter, so that's chemistry and drugs. But in quantum physics, they don't count matter. In quantum physics, it's energy that does all this. And so the idea of drugs are irrelevant. And as a matter of fact, they're not even very damn efficient. As a matter of fact, 300,000 Americans die every year from prescription drugs. About 35,000 Americans die from illegal drugs, and we have a war on illegal drugs. 300,000 people have taken pharmaceutical drugs. They die, and they call that the cost of doing medicine. That's how they analyze it. The 300,000 people die, we ignore it. Okay, fact of life. Journal American Medical Association, 2001. In the journal that doctors, it's a journal for doctors, it was identified that medicine, allopathic conventional medicine, is the third leading cause of death in the United States. It's called iatrogenic illness, so nobody knows what the hell. Science is like the church. We put it in Latin and nobody knows what the hell we're talking about. But iatrogenic illness means illness as a result of medical treatment. It's the third leading cause of death. That was 2001. The British Medical Journal just did the study again 2 years ago. And guess what? Medicine is the third leading cause of death still in the United States. And the reason is this: it's run by the pharmaceutical company. It's not run by a curriculum of intelligence. It's run to support the drug companies, okay? They're not your friends. I go, so what's relevant about all this? And the answer is, well, the cells have the proteins which create life, but the signals come from the environment, so somehow or other the signals have to get into the cell so they can attach to the protein and manifest behavior. And this is where my research took me after my colleagues said, well, how the hell does that work? I went to the cell membrane, the skin, and here's what I found. Cell membrane is a crystalline structure. Those are called phospholipids. They're all lined up like a crystal. It's called a liquid crystal. I say, but what's in there? And they didn't see it all those years. Are proteins built into it. Some proteins have antennas on them. Other proteins don't. The ones with the antennas are called receptors. Do you have receptors, yes or no? Yes. Give me a big one. Yes. Ears, eyes, nose, taste, touch, pain, temperature, pressure. Where are your receptors built into? The skin. Same as the cell. Cell's got primitive receptors. They got antennas to read the vibrations. The other protein in my pair is called, in this case, a channel, okay? It's a protein that's called an effector. It makes an effect. So the channel makes an effect. And I go, well, how does it work? This is going to reveal something major in 1 second if I get through it. Maybe more than 1 second, but here's the point. The receptor reads environmental signals. The channel translates the signal and sends a signal into the cell that activates the functions. It's a switch. This switch controls your biology. I say, how does it work? Well, the receptor is a stimulus receiver. The channel makes a response, stimulus response. That's how it works. I go, wow, this is a switch. Yeah, the signal activates the receptor, the channel couples with it, and sends a signal inside the cell. It's an information processor. And I'll give you the truth, but I don't have a lot of time to go into it. So here's a little brief moment of truth without a lot of explanation. You ready? The definition of the cell membrane that I recognized one night at 1985 at about 1 o'clock in the morning, I wrote a definition of the cell membrane, changed my life forever. And here's the definition. The cell membrane is a crystal semiconductor with gates and channels. The moment I wrote that, I said, geez, I just read that somewhere. It was in I bought a Macintosh, my first computer, a book from Radio Shack, Understanding Your Microprocessor. I look up right in the introduction. A chip is a crystal semiconductor with gates and channels. I go, whoa, what a coincidence. And then I looked at it, I looked at each part, and I said, oh my God, it's not like a chip, it is a chip. It's an organic chip. The cell membrane is an organic chip. The nucleus is a hard drive. with programs in it. Okay? And I say, well, how does it work? Well, I go, here's a receptor and a channel. When the switch is not working, they're not coupled. I say, well, how does it work? I say, well, the receptor with its antenna is looking for a signal from the environment. There's the connector. Look at the shape of the connector. Look at the shape of the protein. I can't connect the two together. But when a signal comes in, a signal changes the shape of the protein. Now I can couple it to the channel, which then changes its shape, opens up, and sends a signal into the cell. When the environmental signal's gone, the switch is broken, that function's not working. When the signal shows back up, the receptor connects to the channel, drives the function inside the cell, and that's how life is controlled by the environment. The signals from the environment are controlling this cell. I go, so what's significant? It's a switch. There are 100,000 of them on a cell. And I go, so what does this mean? I go, well, what is the switch? So I'll give you the Latin-y stuff. The switch is a receptor-effector integral membrane protein complex. Oh, big deal. What the hell does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. But before I tell you, I want you to recognize the fact. You ready? The switch controls a function in the cell. Respiration, digestion, excretion, movement, whatever it is. I go, and that switch got that very complicated name, and I go, wait a minute. Define the function of the switch. What's the function of your receptors? To read the environment. That's what you see, smell, touch, taste. What's the function of the channel? Send a signal into the cell. A physical sensation is going in the cell. So I say, then what's the definition of switch? It's going to make a movement here. It's going to be big, I hope. The definition of the switch? Awareness of the environment through physical sensation. I go, oh, there's a word in the dictionary? We already had a word? Yep. What's the word? Perception. Perception is awareness of the elements of environment through physical sensation. Stop for a second and recognize what's the name of the switch. Perception. What's the function of the switch? Control your biology. I go, your perceptions are controlling your life. When you change your perceptions, you change the functions of your cells. And all of a sudden it says you're not a victim, you're the one that can create it. A switch is a perception. Oh, very important point. Are all your perceptions accurate? Are all your perceptions of life accurate? Some of them may not be accurate. So let's change the word. Instead of just perceptions, it's belief. It's your belief that controls your biology. You change your belief and you change your biology. And all of a sudden you start to realize how your life is being created by your perceptions. And I go, wow, where the heck do you get these perceptions? Well, I told you I grew these cells in culture and changed the culture medium. But now let's come back to a fact. You are a skin-covered petri dish. Underneath your skin, you got 50 trillion cells. And you have the original culture medium. Culture medium is blood. Yeah, but wait, what did the culture show me when I put the cells in the dish? I changed the composition of the blood, or the culture medium, and I changed the function of the cell. And all of a sudden it says, your blood is more than nutrition. Your blood sends signals to the cells. And those signals control the genetics and the behavior of that cell. What's in blood? We always talk about nutrition. Yeah, that's important. But what people don't talk about is there are signals in the blood. Signals that control who you are, control your functions. I said, where do these signals come from? The environment. Internal and external signals come from the environment. I say, yeah, but what reads those signals? The brain, perception, the source of your perception. Then what does the brain do? It sends a signal through the nervous system and the blood to where? Your cells. And those signals do what? What environmental signals do? Control genetics and behavior. So your perceptions are controlling your biology. You walk out the door and it's hot out. The receptors on the skin say it's hot. What are they going to do? Engage a cooling off mechanism, cause the sweat glands to perspire and all that. You walk out and it's cold out. I say, now what? Oh, the reception of cold all of a sudden causes your genes to turn on and turn up the heat and keep your temperature warm. Your temperature isn't controlled by genes, it's controlled by the environment. So is everything, as a matter of fact. But I left something out. This is the critical part. Here we go. What did I leave out? And the answer is, this is not what I left out. This is the conclusion of this. Environment is controlling your behavior and genes. What I left out was simply this. I left out the mind. I go, wow, why or what function is the mind in this story? Interpretation of the signals. That's how two people can be in the exact same environment with the exact same signals coming in and have totally different behavior and response. Because you interpret your signals from your experiences. And so if a signal shows up and you had an experience, you're already engaged in a behavior pattern. I said, well, where do you get these behavior patterns from? And I go, the beliefs. Yeah, but where do you get these beliefs that control your behavior and genes? Well, here's how it works. The brain is the chemist. And when you have a thought, the brain translates the thought into complementary chemistry. To give an example, if you close your eyes and you open them and you see someone you love, guess what? Love causes the brain to release some wonderful chemicals. Dopamine, pleasure. Yeah, dopamine causes pleasure. When you're in love, you get pleasure from the chemistry going in the blood. Oxytocin bonds you to that source of love so you can keep that chemistry going. Vasopressin is released, makes you more attractive to keep your partner. And most importantly, growth hormone does exactly what it says. When you're in love, you're in growth, you're in health, you're in vitality. I say, yeah, but wait. Same person, close their eyes, and when they open up their eyes, they see something that scares them. Oh, well, now you're in fear. Guess what? Love chemistry is not coming out of the brain. Fear chemistry comes out. What is fear chemistry? Stress hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine, hormones that shut off the immune system, cytokines and histamine. And I go, wow, that's a different environment. And all of a sudden I say, yeah, a love environment creates health and vitality. A fear environment shuts down the system. Protection is shut down, okay? So I go, wow. So where do you learn or where do you get all this stuff? I said, well, the function of the mind, if you're going to write one thing down, this is a good one. The function of the mind is to create coherence between your beliefs and your reality. So if you have a belief it's not going to work, guess what? The behavior that you will generate will prove to you that it won't work because you will create the chemistry to cause failure. You will manifest what you believe to happen. And this is critical when people are told, oh my God, you could get cancer, and they believe it, they can create cancer from belief, nothing more than that. So all of a sudden it says, your life is not an accident, you are creating with your beliefs. Oh, now of course the question is, where the hell do the beliefs come from? Well, the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, already knew. He says, what we think, we become. That's a fact of science as it is right now, 2,500 years ago. Your thoughts are the source. And the brain makes sure those thoughts manifest whatever the thought is. Positive thoughts will give you a positive result. Negative thoughts will produce a negative consequence. Why? Because then everything makes sense. Guess what? If you thought, this is the way life is, and you wake up and it changes every day, it's like, wow, you'd be crazy. But guess what? Life works out the way you expected it to work out. What a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It's a manifestation. I've been talking about belief controlling life for 30 plus years now. Here's an article from a scientist at UCLA Medical School, a researcher in epigenetics, and I want to just show you what he wrote because after all those years, I love it. He writes, To an extent that immunologists and psychologists rarely appreciate, we are architects of our own experience. Okay, that's a nice phrase. It's the next one. The next one goes, your subjective experience carries more power than your objective situation. Well, that's a bunch of big words. Let's simplify. Guess what? Subjective experience, what do you think that is? It's belief. That's subjective experience. What do you think objective situation is? That's reality. Now read the sentence. Your belief carries more power than your reality. And all of a sudden, that's why your beliefs are manifesting your life experience. It's not a coincidence. It comes from the mind, and that already is a problem. The mind? Like there's one mind? No, there are two interdependent minds. They learn in different ways, and they function totally differently, but they work interdependently. So I say, what are they? I say, well, the latest evolution of the brain is at the prefrontal cortex, right behind your forehead. That's where this part is. That's the seat of conscious processing, okay? The remaining 90% of the brain was there before that conscious processing. That's called the subconscious. I say, what's the difference? Now watch this, because this is your life right here and how it works. The conscious brain is connected to your unique identity, your source, your spirit. You are in the conscious brain. No other brain, conscious brain, has you in it. The subconscious is different. We'll talk about it. But I say, so what's the main character of the conscious brain? This is beautiful. Creativity. The conscious brain is creative. This is why humans excel over other animals. We can create. We have imagination, and we can use that to create. I say, so then what's the function of it? It offers you your wishes, your desires, and your aspirations. If I ask any one of you, tell me what you want from your life, and you have a visual picture of it, guess what? The job of the conscious mind is to manifest that visual picture. That's the function of, remember, the mind, take the belief and manifest it, okay? It's also connected to positive thinking. It gets a very bad rap, but guess what? For 75 years, science has recognized something called the placebo effect. What is the placebo effect? You got a disease, the doctor says, I got the greatest new medication, purple, it's greater, it's better. That was an ad, purple, it made it better. The purple pill, and I go, you take this pill, you get better, and then you find out the pill was a sugar pill. So tell me what healed you. The sugar pill? Absolutely not. Your belief in the pill. That's positive thinking. That's where it comes from, positive thinking. And I go, okay, so that's what the conscious mind's functions are. I say, what about subconscious? I go, totally different function. It's a record playback mechanism. It's a hard drive. Download a program, push the button, it'll play that program for the rest of your life. Okay? And so it's the habit mind. It's not creative, it's habitual. It will repeat the same damn thing forever. It's not negative. People always say, oh, the subconscious is where the evil is. Let me give you a positive thought for just a second about it. When did you learn how to walk? Before you were 2? Are you still walking? Yes. Can you still walk after 100? Yes. When did that learning come in? Before you were 2. So walking is a habit. And all of a sudden, it's very wonderful because you don't have to think with a habit. It was automatic. So I say then, where do they come from? Instincts and experience. Yeah, walking is an experience, and you learned it. But here comes the problem. The biggest problem all of us on this planet are experiencing, except for maybe the 1%, and here's what it is. Many of the programs you got in your subconscious mind did not come from you. Matter of fact, the majority did not come from you. You were programmed in the first 7 years of your life. And these become the foundational programs that operate in your brain. So I say, well, how does it work? I say, Well, the brain is an information processor, exactly. It's the most powerful computer on the planet, but it has the same functions, so I can now relate to you very simply. How does your computer work? You go to the store, you buy a brand new computer, you take it home, you push start, it boots up. Okay, push start. Boot it up. Now what? Do something. Make a drawing, write an essay, do something. No, can't do anything. Why not? What do you need first before you can do something? Programs. You have to have programs put in. Where do they go? The programs are in the hard drive, the memory, which is the subconscious in this case, okay? I say, once you put the programs in, now you can work the computer. I say, now what? I say, now you can type on the keyboard. That's where creativity comes from. And I go, so what's interesting about it? I go, the hard drive is the subconscious mind. It's got programs in it. Push the button, you'll walk without thinking about it. Drive the car after you've learned how to do it. You don't have to think about it. Not like the first day you got in a car. You can get in a conversation with somebody in a car, drive 10 minutes, and then look out the window and go, oh my God, I haven't paid attention to the road for the last 10 minutes. And fortunately, there's not a whole bunch of wreckage behind you. And so what was the reality? You weren't paying attention. And who was driving the car? Give you a simple example. You're in a conversation with a passenger. That's why you get engaged, and you get so excited, and you get in a conversation, and then you look out the window and go, ooh, I didn't pay attention to the road. But now I asked you 2 questions. You ready? This is profoundly important. I asked 2 questions. Tell me what your conversation was about. And you go, oh, we talked about this and this and this. And I go, great. Now tell me what was on the road in that 10-minute period. And you go, I have no idea. I say, what was relevant? When your conscious mind isn't paying attention, the subconscious mind is autopilot. It took over. But it takes over based on the programs that are in it, okay? So the conscious mind gives you a chance to change the programs, but the subconscious mind is just play the program. So I go, what's relevant? When did you get your programs? That's fundamental. How did you put the program in the damn system? And here's the point. The startup system of your brain is working in the last trimester of pregnancy. And then what happens then? You start to get experiences. Your mother's Head Start program. Your mother is going to tell you as a fetus, what's the world like out there? If she's under stress, then it's a threatening situation. It changes the genetics of the fetus. If she sees life as wonderful and healthy and happy, then that also has a different effect on the fetus. When the mother is happy, the brain of the child gets fully developed. You want to hear a scary number? If the mother is stressed, you can lose up to 50% of your conscious ability. 50% loss IQ consciousness from a mother in stress. Why? Because the mother in stress, that means the world is stressful. And consciousness doesn't get you through a stressful world. You know what gets you through? Muscles, hindbrain. That's the sports person, the street fighter, and how do they survive? Physical, not conscious. So I said, well, how does the program work? I say the first year and a half or so of your life is you're mainly in delta. Delta is a vibration read by EEG, electroencephalograph wires. It's the lowest vibration. That's sleeping. But between 2 and 7, the brain gets a higher vibration called theta. Theta is characterized by imagination. That's why children under 7 can have a tea party, pour nothing into the cup, drink nothing, and talk about how wonderful the tea is. Imagination. This is the mother, give me the broom. The kid is riding it. It's not a broom to the kid. Now it's a horse. Conscious. This is what's happening in theta. Imagination, mixing. But by age 7, it ramps up to the higher vibration alpha. That's calm consciousness. You start to become conscious around 7. And around 12, it jumps up to schoolroom consciousness, beta, work consciousness. And I go, wow. I say, so why is it relevant? Note, The baby, the child, doesn't experience consciousness for the first 7 years of its life. It's in theta. I say, what is theta? Hypnosis. And I say, what is it doing? Stop for a second and say, a baby is going to grow up in a family. What does it need to do? It needs to know all the rules of how to survive in a family. What are the rules? And when you go out into the public, you got to have rules, social rules. You got to learn all these things. You don't go out and be crazy. So guess what? A child has to learn thousands of rules. But he can't read. He's under 7. So how's nature going to do this? Say, hypnosis. The brain is just observing the mother, the behavior, observing the father, observing the behavior. In hypnosis is downloading programs. So the fundamental programs that are built into your computer do not come from you. I go, why is it relevant? Because they most definitely don't really support your wishes and desires. They're somebody else's life. And most of the download, 70%, is disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting beliefs. When you're operating from your subconscious mind, you're operating from those programs. And I say, what's the function of the program? Enculturation. Learn thousands of rules, not by reading, by observing and recording. Okay? And self-identity, and this is where we got screwed. I'll tell you why. Because parents act like coaches on a team. I go, what do you mean? The kid's not behaving right. What does a coach do when a player isn't playing? The coach says, come on, you can do better than that. Who do you think you are? You're not that good. You don't deserve to be on this team. I go, if the kid is older, they're conscious. They're over 7. They're conscious. And they go, oh, yeah, the coach is telling me that because I got to work harder. So I'm going to work harder. I understand. But tell that to a kid under 7. It's not conscious. It's recording. So I said, then what did that child get? Not good enough, not smart enough, not beautiful enough, not capable, not worthy, not deserving. Parents were thinking they were helping the kid by sticking them a little bit. But they didn't realize the kid downloaded every word they said, and that became a program. Okay? So what's the point? Your subconscious programs are screwed. You got a lot of bad programs. You got good ones, but you got a lot of bad ones in there. Okay? Relevance. I won't use the subconscious. I'll just operate from conscious mind. Good idea, totally false reality. And the reality is this, the secret mind, how your unconscious really shapes your experiences. It goes, according to cognitive neuroscientists, we are conscious of only about 5% of our cognitive activity. Well, what does that mean? 5% of the day, you are operating with a conscious mind with creative wishes and desires, what you want. But why only 5%? Remember the story about the car? If your consciousness isn't focused on what you're looking at, subconscious is autopilot. The moment you take your consciousness off, subconscious grabs the wheel and drives you. Where? To whatever the hell the program was. Good program or bad program. Well, that's what it says. 95% of your life is because when you are thinking, you're not looking out at the world. Thinking is inside. I can ask you all right now, tell me what you're doing on Sunday at 2 o'clock. If it's not written in front of you, in a very short time, you'll probably go, yeah, I think I'm doing this. I go, but you didn't realize just what happened. I asked you that question. The answer is not out here. You took your conscious mind and went inside. Thinking is an inside job. The moment you're thinking, you're not paying attention. And all of a sudden I say, well, the moment you're not paying attention doesn't mean everything stops. It just means autopilot steps in. But it controls your behavior based on the program. Were they good programs? Most of them, no. I say, so why is it relevant? Because you are creating a life that you didn't even observe. Okay, I'll give you the same story. 30 years, same story. I'm looking for a better one, but here's the one again, repeated. You have a friend. You know your friend's behavior very, very well. And you know your friend's parent. And one day you see your friend has the exact same behavior as their parent, and you gotta tell them. You just gotta say, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. Back away from Bill. The moment you say that, I can assure you Bill's gonna say, how the hell can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. Most of you have experienced this. I say, why is it relevant? Because it's so profound. Why? Everybody else can see that Bill behaves like his dad. The only one who doesn't see it is Bill. I say, how come he doesn't see it? Why is he playing his dad's program? Because he's not paying attention. Therefore, whatever the hell the program is coming out, 95% of the day, Bill does not see it. Now, we are all Bill. All right. I'm going to ask you right now, do you know what programs do you have? Do you know what program you got when you were in the last trimester of development? Do you remember the program you got when you were 0? Do you remember the program you got when you were 1? Okay, how about the program you got when you were 2? Here's the point. You weren't conscious, so you had no idea what the hell the programs are. But now I'm going to help you. You ready? 95% of your life is coming from the program. Your life is a printout of your programs. I say, so why is it relevant? Answer is simple. The things you like that come into your life, they come into your life because you have a program to acknowledge that. But the things that you want, things you desire and wish for, if it's a struggle and you have to work hard, you have to sweat over it, you're putting a lot of effort in, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it happen. I say, why are you working so hard? And the answer is, the program you got doesn't support that conclusion, and you're going to try and take the conscious mind and override that program. Good luck, it won't work. What's the point? Your life is a printout of your program. If you see parts of your life that aren't working right, it's because of a program. But we can change those programs. And if you know how to change those programs, then you have all the power in the world. Okay, we'll talk about that. But I can also tell you something interesting. Yeah, you're only creating about 5%. It's not what you want. So I say, so you're actually living off behavior and beliefs you got from other people. Okay? You've been programmed. That's a fact. You have been programmed. Not something new, something we've known for a while, but let me tell you about the program first of all. EEG, wires on your head, I can read your conscious patterns and behaviors, okay? And the point about it is, the belief is, oh my God, it's going on inside. And I could read what's going on inside your head if I put these wires on it. And I go, that was true until a new device called magnetoencephalograph. This is a very primitive picture as they were developing it. I want you to know what is it doing. The magnetoencephalograph reads magnetic fields, not electric fields, of your functioning brain. And I say, so it's reading consciousness. Yeah, but what's important about it? What's important, you ready? Where the hell's the probe? It's not even touching your head. The probe is reading your thoughts and your consciousness out here. And you go, so what? And I say, your thoughts are not contained in your head. You're broadcasting them into the field. This is the newer version of that, just to show you they've come a little bit a ways from the original one. But what's the point? You can read somebody's consciousness not in their head, but outside of their head. It's a field. Consciousness is a field. Wait! Field shapes matter. Woo! Quantum physics again. Your thoughts are broadcast into the field as the field, and they shape matter because matter is shaped by the field. You are creating a field with your consciousness. You're broadcasting. I say, well, what are you broadcasting? I say 5% of the day you're broadcasting energy that will create things that you want. But 95% of the day, you are broadcasting subconscious programs, most of them actually disempowering. And that's why life is a struggle. because we don't see our behavior. I said, what do you mean? Like Bill. If you wake up in the morning and say, today is my success day. I'm getting the best job. I'm getting, healthy today. I'm finding a great relationship. 8 o'clock in the morning, you're fired up and you go to work. And at 5 o'clock, it didn't happen. Didn't happen today. And you come home. And I say, what did you think happened today? I came forwards with wishes and desires, and something out there stopped me. I am a victim. Why? You're not a victim. Why? Because you didn't realize, like Bill, you were shaping that experience before you left the house. And so what you were creating was from your consciousness, and it wasn't good, and you didn't see it, and you therefore by victim. And that's what the biggest problem on the planet today is. Everybody's a friggin' victim. Give me a child for the first 7 years, they knew exactly the program period, and they said, I'll give you the man, because they already knew 95% of your life is coming from that program. You've all been programmed by people who have known this for 400 years. And the programming is what? Disempowerment. Why? How can somebody control you if you're a creator making your own power? But if I take away your creative ability, you become a victim. And that programming for most of people occurred then. The movie The Matrix, as mentioned in the video, is a documentary. Yes, we've all been programmed. But what was cool about the documentary is they got a choice of a red pill and a blue pill. You take the blue pill, you wake up and life is just the way it was every day. But if you take the red pill, you wake up and you're not in the program. I say, take the red pill. Most of you have already taken the red pill, and you didn't even know it. You know when it occurred? It occurred when you fell in love. Your life could be blah, 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 blah. And then you meet somebody 24 hours later. Oh, man, life's beautiful. Oh, I love my life. I'm having a great life. I'm in love. So what happened? You found yourself in a state of exuberant health when you fell in love. Why? Love releases growth hormone and all those good things. Oh, guess what? You had abundant life energy. Come on, some of you made love for days and didn't stop for sleep or food. Right? All right. But the result was what? You experienced heaven on earth. I say, what was relevant? You went blah, 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 and then one day, 24 hours later, heaven on earth. You know what? It was there the entire time. You were just playing programs 95% of the time. Falling in love stops the program. It's scientific. A wandering mind is an unhappy mind. What's it mean? If the conscious mind is wandering, you're running from subconscious programs, most of which are negative. And it says, well, what does it do? It says, mind wandering occurs in all activities, and I'll just underline it, except making love. I go, what does that mean? Making love is not the time to think. Making love is time to be present. So that was what was different. You stopped playing the program. And how fast was the change? 24 hours. 24 hours from hell on earth to heaven on earth. And all it was, you stopped playing the program. You stay mindful. Being mindful means you stop thinking and stay in the present moment. But that's difficult as hell. Why? There's too much busyness in this world. It forces you to think. And every time you think, you let go of your power. Okay? I want to close with this, and I'm going to come back on the question of changing the program, but I want to add this last part. To me, this is an important part for the following reason. I did not believe in spirituality. I believed in genes, proteins, chromosomes. I was a biologist. But once I understood the membrane, I said, wait a minute. No two people are the same. No two people are the same. I can tell you why. Take cells out of your body, put it into another person's body, and guess what? Their immune system will say, not self, and destroy them. What's the point? Well, your cells must have an identity because the recipient of those cells, their system read that identity, said that's not us. So there's identity. Each of us has a unique identity. Where the hell is it? Well, here's what we got. 2 liver cells. I could pick 2 brain cells, 2 skin cells, 2 muscle cells. I wanted 2 identical cells. Reason? Most of that cytoplasm is all involved with liver function. So I say, okay, so both cells are doing the same thing, but one is Bruce's cell and one is Margaret's cell. And I say, but they're different because I can't put my cells in her body and she can't put hers into mine. So I say, so where is the self? And here it comes. I'm going to erase the color from everything that's the same between the 2 cells, leaving behind where are 2 people different from each other. Okay? I know the nuclei are not the same, but let's go back to an experiment I mentioned earlier. Take the nucleus out, throw it away. We don't need it right now. Okay? So here goes, removing the color of everything the same. Where are 2 people different from each other? Where are they different? I hope you see the color. If you're red-green colorblind, you may not see it, but the color is in the membrane. No 2 people have something different. They have something different in their membrane. I say, what is it? Well, scientists have recognized it for a long time. They gave it a name. I love it. Self-receptors. But in a Newtonian world, they were looking at the protein receptor as what makes you different. In a quantum world, the protein is a receiver of a signal. It's a receptor. Remember? Antenna? Well, guess what? No 2 people have the same set of self-receptors. They're a group, a larger number of these receptors. They're like a social security number, so to speak. No 2 people have the same set. And no 2 people are different. I go, yeah, but what does that mean? I go, well, let me show you. If I take my receptors off of my cell is now generic. It's not even my cell. I can implant it in anybody. Why? There's no personal identity to it. Now watch. I go to Margaret's cell, take her receptors of self off of her cell, put it onto my cell. It's not my cell anymore. If I put that cell back in my body, my immune system will reject it. But if I put it in Margaret's body, she'll accept it. I say, then ownership, identity, is due to a set of these receptors called self-receptors. I go, yeah, but what was the meaning? The receptors aren't the source of difference. It's the signal received by the receptor. Where do the signals come from? Environment. And you say, so what's the relevance? Most unbelievable thing in the whole world. I'll start with this. Go back to physics. The word field has a definition. Remember, we're all in a field. I say, what's the definition? A field, invisible moving forces that influence the physical world. Now, there's another word with the exact same definition. What's that word? Spirit. Invisible moving forces that influence the physical world. Quantum physics is revealing to you a very important insight. Your identity is an energy field. It's a broadcast. Relevance? The cells are like televisions that are receiving a broadcast from the field, which you can call spirit, you can call field. I don't care which one you call it, okay? The cell, it's like a television set. Television has antenna on it. Those are receptors. I say, what happens? A signal will be picked up by the antenna and put a pattern on that screen. Where the hell did the signal come from? Inside the TV? No. It came from the environment and picked up by the antenna. I go, wow, that's really interesting because the signal comes from outside the system's picked up by. And I go, yes, but listen to this. Just listen to this because this is the whole thing. You ready? You're watching a TV and it breaks. And what do we say? TV's dead. TV's dead. Question? Did the broadcast die as well? Broadcast is there. Why? Get another TV, tune it into the same station, and now playing on a different TV set. I go, why is it relevant? Because a cell has antennas on it, receiving a signal of self for you that nobody else receives. And so your identity is picked up by what are called self-receptors. And the source is, the signal is the environment. It's called a field or spirit. I go, why is it relevant? You are not in here. You are out here. And you are playing through these antennas. And first moment, I said, wait a minute. Oh my God, I am a spirit, but I am a body. And my scientific mind got very curious at that moment and asked myself a question. Why have a body if I already have a spirit? And 50 trillion cells welled up with an answer, finding out they're Jewish comedian cells. I asked a question. They answered with a question. I asked, why have both a body and a spirit? And the cells said to me, Bruce, if you're just a spirit, what does chocolate taste like? That is the most profound answer in the shortest little sentence I can tell you. I'll tell you why. An energy field has no receptivity. It can't feel things. It can't see as we see. This is a virtual reality suit. You get into the suit and you can smell and touch and see and feel and have emotions. That's from this body. The body is a fabulous extension. It gives a spirit can say, love, yeah, that could be really nice. What is love? Get a body. Get love hormones going through the body. You'll feel what the heck love is all about, okay? The body enhances the nature of the spirit. But the body is a television set. It can die. Broadcast is still here. And guess what? A future embryo shows up with the same set of receptors that you have on your cells right now, and you are back, but in a different TV. Doesn't make a difference if it's male or female? Nope, that's the TV set. Doesn't make a difference if it's white, brown, black, yellow, red. No, that's the TV set. You are not the TV set. You are the source that is driving this system. And if you understand this and you realize the most important thing in the world, there's no such thing as death. You can't die. You're not even in here. Your spirit goes on, but you influence it. That's karma. Because remember the brain study? The consciousness is not contained in the head. It's sent back to the source. And all of a sudden, there's a whole new insight to why you have this body and why you should enjoy it. For every moment you're not receiving sensitivity, you are losing the function of your life. And men, I'm so sorry because I grew up as a man. And I say, what was that? I said, it was quite different than growing up as a woman. Why? Growing up as a woman, you can be sensitive, and that's part of being a woman. But men cannot be sensitive. And what do we do as young guys? Hey, let me hit you in the shoulder, see if you flinch. Let me see if, you cried, you're a pussy. No. And what was the point? They beat sensitivity out of men. Why? Because you cannot be a soldier and be sensitive. We have to take sensitivity out so I can give you a gun and you can go kill any damn thing out there we tell you. But if you're sensitive, it's not going to work. We lost. The women lost because they're always going, why are you guys such insensitive louts? It wasn't our intention. It was a program. And when you understand it, then turn it around and go, I want sensitivity. And if I like something, I'm going to do it again. If I don't like it, I'm not going to do it again. But I want sensitivity. That changed my entire life because we're all looking for that. Sensitivity is more important than materiality. People think if I buy this, Maserati, I'm going to be happy. I say, you could be happy without buying a Maserati. But we have connected buying things to represent, and we live in a material world. That's why we got so much material. They got places to rent. You could throw your extra material in there. You don't have enough room in your own house. But we have taken the material out of the planet, and that is why we are facing the end. And so the last thing I need to show you is this, two more slides. I'll get you out. 2 more slides. 1, 3 cells. What's different? A Muslim cell, a Jewish cell, a Christian cell. My God, they're different. Where the hell did they get different? Well, here's the important part. It was called programming. Because why? Because we all came from the same source. It is that programming that causes dissension in the ranks. That is the program, one people against another people. Most wars were religious wars when it comes down to it. And the reality is what? Programming. You've been programmed. You have lost your power. There are people that are very powerful, and you say, how did they get to be so powerful? No, they didn't get more power. They took away your power. And now the program is what? Well, you're here with Sage and Tony to do what? Get your power back. I'm running out of time, but I guess I have to tell you the most important ending of this, because if you can't change the program, what a pain in the ass this lecture is. Why is it difficult to change the subconscious? The answer is the subconscious is a habit mind. If it changes easily, then there are no habits. Habits resist change. So the subconscious mind resists change. But it got programmed. So if you know how it got programmed, you could use the same technique to reprogram. So how'd you get programmed the first 7 years? Hypnosis. You got hypnosis. Brain was in theta. Whatever was coming in wasn't going into the conscious mind, it was going into the subconscious mind. So if you get in theta, you can do hypnosis. Can you get in theta? Of course, every night you get in theta. You know why? Because you wake up, you're coming out of delta, sleep, and the first thing is twilight reverie, where you're mixing the real world and the dream world. And then you wake up and you're in alpha consciousness, and that's the calm morning. And then you go to work and now you're in beta consciousness, and this is now running your life. But when you come home, you relax, and beta calms down into alpha. And just at the moment you close your eyes and go to sleep, the brain is now dropped into theta. Well, that's hypnosis. So I say, so what would you do? I say, you put earphones on when you go to bed, and you get a program of what you want. Relationship, job, money, health. I don't care what the programs, you get all these programs. You put the earphones on when you go to bed. You'll hear a little bit of the program while you're still awake, but the moment you fall asleep, conscious mind shuts off, you hear nothing. But the subconscious is working. And so it's downloading while you're sleeping. God, that's great. That's like homework without doing any work. All you have to do is go to sleep. So that is called self-hypnosis. And you repeat that every night when you go to bed. Secondly, but hypnosis only worked until you were 7. But you learn things after 7, how to drive a car, how to play an instrument, all these different kinds of things. I say, how did you learn that? Because they are now habits. I say, repetition. You repeated what you wanted over and over again. You practice. There's a new agey thing that goes, fake it till you make it. And what does that mean? It says, well, if you're not a happy person, what do? All day long, every time you can remember, just all day long, go, I'm happy. I am happy. You could be the most miserable son of a bitch, but you're going, I am happy. I am happy. And I say, why? Repetition. And repetition causes habit. And through that repetition, one day you wake up, you don't have to repeat it anymore, because now it's a habit, and you become happy without any work at all. That's the cool part. Once the program is in, it happens automatically. Subconscious is going to control you. And last but not least, one of the most important things is called energy psychology. On my website, very simple, brucelipton.com, I have about 25 energy psychology modalities. What does it represent? Super learning. So what the hell is super learning? Do you ever see somebody read a book by moving their finger down the page? As fast as they moved it, they read every word. They can stand in a bookshop in 5 minutes, flip through the page, and read the entire book. If you engage super learning and downloading a program, you can create a new program in minutes versus the habituation process or the self-hypnosis process, which is repetition. With energy psychology, you can create change in about 15, 20 minutes and walk away. It's really important. It's your power to do that. So I said, I put a whole bunch of them down there on my website. Read one that you like, find one, try it out. And the most important thing is this: you have become empowered. And the work is so cool because in 15 minutes, you walk away and there's no more effort to do anything. That's the beautiful part about this. Once the program's in, it operates 95% of the time automatically. You don't even have to make an effort. It's been operating anyway. And so why is this relevant? We're facing an evolution. And the evolution is due to human behavior that is upending the web of life that we live in. Behavior has to change. You are the leading edge of behavioral change because you have teachers that were important, Sage and Tony. They were helping you move into this new consciousness. And it's required because you are the butterfly that is forming. And the caterpillar is going downhill. And anybody who holds on to that caterpillar is going to have the most miserable existence from this point on. It doesn't work. And you have already got the head start. That's what makes it easy for me to talk about this. I don't have to say, you think this works? You already know it works. But you can make it work even better. You can make it work so effectively that you can change your biology on the inside and your life experiences on the outside. Why? Quantum physics, consciousness is creating your life experiences. That's your gift to yourself. By consciousness, it will create heaven on earth. You've already done it if you fell in love, and then you lost the honeymoon. You know why you lost the honeymoon? How did you get the honeymoon? You stopped thinking. But there's a point where, yeah, but you still have a job and you have chores and responsibilities, and all of a sudden you start bringing those back into the relationship. It blows the relationship to shit for, you know why? Because you never played any of those negative programs during the honeymoon. Your partner knows you only from your wishes and desires that you're manifesting. Then one day, my partner Margaret comes up, I'm having a thought. She asks me a simple question, I go, blah, blah, blah. She looks at me and goes, who are you? She never saw this before. Why? I didn't play these negative programs. And as one comes up and another, and they come up from both partners, and they start to come up, and all of a sudden, that honeymoon is not the same heaven on earth anymore. Because now it's coming back to more regular life. Why? Because you are now back into playing programs. And the programs kept you from heaven on earth. And the reality is heaven on earth is a reality. You don't die to experience heaven on earth. You're born to experience heaven on earth. And you're making differences. And that's the most powerful thing in your life, because when you see you are making a difference, that's fuel. That's the fuel that says, I want more differences. And you can do that. And you're in the right place with the right people. I'm honored to be with you because we're not starting at zero in this room. We already got magnificent people. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Before you go, I know it's late, but I want to ask you one question. Just as we talked about this outside, just take a seat just for 1 second. Would you just address, you touched a little bit about placebos, but give people a sense of how powerful they are and what percentage they were compared to drugs.
Yeah.
You see things like statins that people take.
That's a ridiculous drug.
Maybe just touch statins and touch on Prozac as an example.
That's another ridiculous drug.
You'll just mention what your perception, your experience about the science of COVID for a second.
Okay. The science of COVID is very interesting because COVID is a new species of virus. It's a different species. We have lots of coronaviruses. We've had lots of experiences. You've had colds before. Most of those are coronavirus. Why is this one different? Because it's new to the human population. So none of us have been exposed before. I say, so why is it relevant? Because now everybody is susceptible, because nobody has any immunological memory of experiencing it. And then I go, well, yeah, but the damn thing is so lethal. I go, no, it is not lethal. It's hardly any more lethal than a flu. I say, then where's the problem coming from? And the problem is this. You're being scared to death. And fear, as I already showed you, shuts down the immune system. Fear shuts it off because the immune system uses a lot of energy. And many of you have been sick, didn't even get out of bed because of how much energy, a flu-like thing can cause. And I go, but if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, does it make any difference about your bacterial infection? Oh, absolutely not. If the tiger catches you, the bacterial infection is not your problem anymore. And so what's the point? The point is, when you are in fear, you shut down all systems that are not supporting protection. That means the gut shuts down. Stress hormones cause the blood vessels in the gut to squeeze shut. You've experienced it's called butterflies in the stomach. When you start to get a little queasy and things aren't working right. Blood vessels shutting down. Why? I don't need to maintain my body. The blood has the energy. If I use the energy in my gut, I'm running from a tiger. I need the energy in my arms and legs. 3 things happen. Ready? Number 1, stress hormones shut down the blood vessels in the gut. Why? I don't need to do body maintenance until I survive, okay? Then the second thing it does, stress hormones shut off the immune system. Why? As I said, if you got a bacterial infection and a tiger's going to eat you, bacterial infection is not a big deal anymore. And the energy that disease and illness take from your body will prevent you from running away successfully. So stress hormones shut down the immune system. So effective that doctors give patients that are going to receive a transplant stress hormones before they transplant a foreign organ. Why? Because if you put the foreign organ in, the recipient's immune system will reject it. But if you give the patient stress hormones, it shuts off the immune system so that the graft can take. So stress hormones are even used therapeutically to shut off your immune system. And then there's an insult to injury for this reason. When you're running away from a saber-toothed tiger, do you think you need conscious processing or hindbrain reflex? Conscious processing is a little slow. Oh, the tiger's coming. Oh, no. Remember I told you the stress hormones shut the blood vessels in the gut? They shut the blood vessels in the forebrain so that the blood is pushed to the hindbrain where reflex behavior, no thinking, reflex behavior. I go, so what's the consequence of this stress? It debilitates you physiologically, shuts off your immune system, opens you up to more disease, and makes you stupid. Because you give up consciousness to buy other people's stories who are the protectors, the one with the bigger stick, the one whatever. And the idea is that is the direct result of stress. It's a way to save your life. But when you start to realize it's compromising your life, then it's no longer useful to do this to you. You have to get out of fear. Fear is what will destabilize the entire system. Remember, it was very useful when saber-toothed tigers were here. Why? Because if the tiger was coming, you want to get the hell out of there. But guess what? That stress only lasts about 10 or 15 minutes. If you escape that tiger, no more stress. And you're back into growth and health and maintenance. But in today's world, as you all know, stress is 24/7, 365. You have compromised your immune system. The people that have the biggest problems with the COVID virus are already compromised. People that are healthy will have a flu, get over it, and have immunological memory and never have to worry about this damn virus again. The idea that, oh, we're going to put everybody in a quarantine, And I go, well, that was to slow down the number of people showing up at the hospital. The idea that many people somewhere got along like, well, they've been in quarantine, so now they're safe. I go, that's a bunch of BS. That's belief system. And the reason why is simply this. These group of people are meat for that virus. As soon as you let them out, the viruses are still here. They don't have any immune activity. Of course there's a second spike. What the hell would you expect? And the problem is we're getting into the third spike. And I say, what's that all about? I'll give you a fact that you may not know. The viruses like COVID don't reproduce at body temperature. If the body is 98.5 or whatever, 6, if the body is at that temperature, the virus can't reproduce. That's why it's called a cold virus. It will attach itself to anything in the body that is colder than 98. I go, what's that? Respiratory system. Why? You're breathing in outside air. It's not body temperature. And so the respiratory tract has got a lower temperature than the rest of the body. That's why it's the victim of the COVID, because at that lower temperature, the COVID could reproduce. So now that we're into colder weather, well, now you've, enhanced that virus's function in this case, because now your respiratory system's a bit cooler. What's the net result, though? If you're in a good state of health, eat well, not industrial farm food, eat natural, organic food. Just think about it. If you ever seen industrial farmers in the farm, they're wearing hazard suits and spraying the food you're going to eat. If they can't be in a damn place with that spray, then how come you could eat it? Because it's market, okay? And the relevance about this is we need that. Also, there's a shortage of minerals and vitamins. The two most important things to strengthen your immune system, vitamin C in massive doses, 2 grams a day, and vitamin D, which enhances the function of the immune system. Most of us don't get enough vitamin D. And then lastly, so we have what? Eating right, taking vitamins and supplements, exercising, because it pushes the system and gets the blood to operate through all of the functions of your body when you're exercising. And the last one, the most important, which is the moment we've been talking about, is do not be afraid, because the moment you're afraid, you are now making yourself susceptible. You've shut down the immune system in fear, and that's what television has been doing to everyone everywhere around the world, scaring the hell out of them. And what is it doing? It's causing the end. And I'll also tell you this. Do not, if you can help it, ever take an injection under the skin, because you bypass the intelligence of the body. The body has a natural intelligence system. People had immunity long before medical schools ever showed up. We wouldn't be here if there wasn't natural immunity. I say, then what is natural immunity? And this is a screw up. There are the things in the throat called tonsils. If you look in the textbooks, most of them say they're there to protect you, and destroy bacteria and viruses that come in through your mouth, nose, ears, and eyes, which pass through the throat. So they say they're for protection. No, they're not. They're learning centers. They are open to the outside with channels. They sample everything coming in. This is why an infant instinctively puts everything in their world into their mouth. Natural immunity. When you bypass this and go under the skin, you've taken the most advanced piece of machinery in the universe and then bypassed its function, and you expect it to work? Vaccines cause problems. There used to be something called a swine flu back in the 76, and everybody was going to line up and get the shot. Thank God that it never showed up, because most people, by the time the vaccine became available, said, nah, I'm not going to get that vaccine, except they gave it to all the kids and to the old people. And I go, so what was the consequence? It was $1 billion worth of insurance the government had to pay, because the vaccine companies would not ensure that their vaccines were safe. Insurance companies would not insure vaccines the government had to take out insurance, which is against the Constitution. And the point was what? There were more people that got serious Guillain-Barré syndrome from getting a vaccine. There were only a couple of people that had the swine flu. It was blown out of proportion. I really want to say, as a biologist and a scientist, I do not support Fauci. I do not support Bill Gates. These are money-making people. Somebody's paying for vaccines. If everyone in the world is getting a vaccine, someone is making it, and someone is getting a lot of money. They're pushing it. And I'll also give you my last fact about it. By law, they do not have to tell you what's in a vaccine. And I want to tell you, you let somebody inject unknown crap into your system, that's a violation of human rights. You don't let that happen. And so the point is very simply this: encourage your immune system to be healthy. Eat well, vitamins, exercise, and keep your consciousness clear. And as you'll find out, up to 85-95% of the people have a flu. It's people that are compromised. They're the ones that have to take special precautions. Not us if you're not compromised. So basically, it's the world government. Somehow, a small group of people have made the entire world respond to their decision. And all of a sudden, you're seeing what is going to be the foundation of, in the future, world government will say, we must make decisions for the world. Their decisions are crap. They're based on money and bad science. I teach immunology. I'm familiar with all of this, okay? And the reality is this: you want a vaccine? Then do it the way nature does it. Oral vaccines. That is the way it's always been, and that is the only proper way to get a vaccine, because your system will manage whatever is coming in the mouth. It has always done it.
Last question I just want to plant with you. Nocebo versus placebo. Explain to people how their mind can do that. And will you just cover the two most abused and used drugs? What happens when you use something like Prozac? How effective is it compared to any placebo?
Okay.
Perhaps secondly, address what people are being told every day because of the heart they needed to take.
Okay. Number one, the whole idea that cholesterol is the violator of your health and happiness is a totally false assumption. That the system does not take in dietary cholesterol. You can eat all the damn cholesterol you want. The system will not take it in. It creates its own cholesterol. So that has now been taken off of, the forbidden list. Don't eat egg yolks and all that kind of stuff, and fat. It's like, you must eat that because the brain is white for a reason, because it's 90% fat. And that's what makes it work. The lipids make it work. So the idea of statins was to cut down the cholesterol. But the simple reality is this: where did they come up with a number for cholesterol? Well, they went out and checked 100,000 people and measured the cholesterol. And they found there was a guy in the middle that had the average amount. And all of a sudden, that is the amount of cholesterol. If you have more than that, you must take a drug according to the people. And the fact is, no two people are the same. Cholesterol levels vary from one person to the next. There is no standard cholesterol number. It's a false thing. Statins interfere with cholesterol metabolism in the body. I go, and what does that result in? It messes up your neurological processing. Your brain depends on cholesterol. Cholesterol is not the problem. I worked in a lab where what we did is we put so much cholesterol into a rat that the blood was not red, it was milky white. And guess what? If you just put the cholesterol in there up to that level, the stress causes atherosclerosis, okay? But here's the part that's cool. You give them that much cholesterol and you give them an antihistamine, and there's no atherosclerosis. What was the point? The excess cholesterol they were claiming was actually involving histamine, not cholesterol. It's the histamine, the stress hormone. And the stress hormone is why. What do people have in vascular disease? Blood pressure that goes up and then comes back to normal, and then goes up and comes back to normal and goes up. And I say, why is it relevant? I'm sorry for this. A blood vessel has to carry blood, but it also has to do two things. It has to be able to shrink and shut down or slow down the blood flow, but it also has to be able to open up to allow faster blood flow. So there's a median size. The amount of fluid going through, I should be able to relax and let it go through faster, and I should make it contract. And I go, so what's the relevance? When the blood pressure is high, the feedback is, too much pressure. We need to replicate the cells in the lining of the blood vessel to make a bigger blood vessel. So then the cells start to divide. But then you go home and they have less stress at some point, and now it's like, well, we don't need any more of those cells. But then they get back and get high stress, and you make more of those cells. That creates what's called a plaque. The plaque is a layer of cells that keep getting induced to form when high blood pressure is going, and then not used when the blood pressure goes down, erratic blood pressure. So what's the point about it is the cholesterol had nothing to do with it. It was the stress on the blood vessel walls that caused this problem, and antihistamines can stop that. And all of a sudden there's an over-counter drug, simple antihistamine, that can stop diabetes retinopathy, diabetes loss of fingers, same problem, and the issue with atherosclerosis and heart problems. And all of a sudden it's like, statins had nothing to do with it. Matter of fact, here's a fact of science number. Out of 100 people that take statins, 3 have a positive effect from the statin. Okay? And 27 of those taking statins will have a negative effect. So the result of statins is it creates more problems than it actually helps anybody with. Very few. Statins are a biggest money maker for pharmaceutical companies. Why? This year, the cholesterol number is XX plus 3, and everybody with higher than that has to get a drug. And then a few years later, the high level now is XX plus 1. It's even lower, but you still got to, they keep dropping the level of the cholesterol and raising the number of people who get the prescription. Every time they drop the cholesterol level, more people now are required to take statins. It's a money-making venture, changes every 10 years, and it's disruptive as hell. What's the nocebo effect? What's the placebo effect? We talked about positive thinking. Positive thinking creates the things you want. What is the result of negative thinking? Nobody ever talks about that. But here's the most important fact. Negative thinking is equally powerful in controlling your life as is positive thinking, but it works in the opposite direction. Negative thinking can cause any disease on this planet, epigenetics, and negative thinking can kill you just by the fear. Negative thinking is the complete opposite function of positive thinking. And then you find out that, I forgot what the number is, but it's greater than 50% of our thoughts are negative and redundant. And therefore, every day we go out and we sabotage ourselves because nobody says negative thinking can kill you. And it will. And all of a sudden it says that's where the biggest problems come from. Negative thinking with a mind. What's the function of the mind? Take the thinking and manifest it. Negative thinking, if you believe you're going to get cancer, you can get cancer just by having the belief of cancer. And you can heal yourself from cancer with a positive belief. And all of a sudden it says, belief, again, quantum physics, is what controls the character of your life. Not the presumable genes and all that stuff we were taught. Completely wrong, but disempowering at every level. Because if you follow that conventional information, you will not heal yourself. You will just find yourself in the lower part of the pack. You will sabotage yourself all day long. And so, negative thinking, equally powerful to positive thinking, but it works in the opposite direction. Every negative thought you have is throwing out a vibration that will cancel a positive reality. It comes down to that. And everyone looking for so hard for mechanisms and shit like that, it's basically not. It's basically, what are your thoughts? And Tony and Sage have been trying to, and have not been unsuccessful because you're all here, of raising your thoughts, raising the value of who you are, and recognizing you are truly creators. You are not victims of life. Your belief makes you a victim, but your belief can make you the creator. And that's the most fundamental message I can give, and say, Sage and Tony, saving you, me, and the world with all of this work. And I'm deeply honored to be here. Thank you very much.